Well, hi everybody, Father Alex here. Welcome to another episode of the Godcast. I'm not only the host of the Godcast, I'm author of this book, Our Daily Bread from Argos to the Altar, a Priest Story, which is available in all good bookshops, so you do check that out. And I'm also the vicar of St Matthew's Church in Burnley. My guest today on the Godcast is a gentleman called Finley Worthington. We're going to be talking about drugs. We're going to be talking specifically about ketamine as shortly there'll be a BBC Radio 4 documentary called File on 4. And this is a bit of a pre-runner and an introduction to people who might not be aware of the drug and the devastating consequences that it can have. So a very open and honest interview. If you enjoy it, then do check out the site, my YouTube channel. There's lots of interviews there, from politics, from music to entertainment to sport. There really is something for everybody to do. Check that out. But for now, do enjoy this interview with Finley Worthington. Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the podcast today is Finley Worthington, and Finley's come on to talk about a difficult subject for many people, but one about drugs and particularly ketamine. Finley, it's great to get you on. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for having me. Nice to see you. Yeah, all good. All good. A lot better these days now. Yeah,
That's
sure.
good. Good to hear. So let's just give this a little bit of context, Finley. So just tell a bit about yourself and about where you grew up, and and whether what was your kind of your first awareness of drugs. Perhaps that might be a good place to
Yeah.
start.
Excuse me. Sorry. Oh, right. So yeah. So I grew up in Burnley, in Brunshire. Um, a bit of a normal childhood. Smoking weed and stuff like that in school. Drinking on parks. The usual sort of stuff that a lot of young people do. And at the time, it was normal. There was nothing really looking back that stood out. Where I could say, oh, well, there were signs then, if that makes sense. So yeah, we had like quite a close group. We weren't bad kids. We weren't good kids. Used to play a lot of football. Um, Loved football, loved sports, anything along those lines. We played football most days, but then weed sort of crept in more and more. Um, it went from smoking it, maybe once on a weekend to twice, and it just crept up and up to the point then it become daily. We then started sort of going out a little bit more, got introduced to going downtown. Obviously, we were a little bit young, so we all had fake IDs and stuff like that. And there was a lot of cocaine around. Now, I can't remember the exact specific time when I first tried it properly, but I remember the first ever time trying cocaine, thinking this is great. It gave me like a complete new level of confidence that I'd never had. Thought we all thought we're invincible on it, mixing it with drink, and obviously, not a good combination. But looking back at the time, it was great. It was like, oh, what's this? It were a complete new feeling. As time started going on, we're going out with cocaine. It sort of become, and this is me looking back now. I was always the one who wanted more. I was always saying, let's get some more. Going through it the fastest. I was always in the toilets or on a back street or wherever, just going through bags. And again, at that point, I was probably, what would I have been? 16, 17 maybe. You don't really have an understanding. To you at that age, you're just doing what you should be doing. You're going out you're going out drinking and partying, and it's quite normal. And as time went on, that worsened. So when we would go out, I'd be buying more, going through more. And to sort of cut a long story short, cocaine was the first drug that grabbed me after weed, the first class A. And it took me to a place of just being, just isolating. I'd go out with the lads. As soon as I'd have cocaine, I wanted to be at home. Didn't want to be around anyone. And very isolated, which is where addiction wants you. It wants you isolated on your own, where nobody can question anything.
Yeah, Finley, you've you've said that as though it was kind of normal lifestyle. And I guess, I mean, this podcast gets watched across the country, and people might be surprised to just hear that, weed was normal. Just go back to
Yeah.
that. What age were you? Can you remember? And how normal was it? Was it like just weird if you didn't do weed? Just say a bit about that if you would.
So yeah, it was in school, so we would have been maybe 15-year old, 14, 15, and it seemed to be the norm. Everyone smoked weed. Now I wouldn't say it was weird if you didn't, but it was just what we did. All my friendship group did it, and I know there was other friendship group. We had quite a big friendship group, so you know, at times there might have been, there was a load of the lads and a load of girls that sort of got together and made one big group, and I know there's a lot of other friendship groups that did it as well. So it genuinely was just a normal thing for us to be doing. That were my idea of it, and I know a lot of my mates it was similar. We didn't really see it as an issue. And it's funny looking back. I remember at the time, my family, my grandma especially, telling me that it's a gateway drug. And when you're that young and you're naive and you're uneducated and you've not got any level of self awareness, I thought it was just an adult lecturing me, that type of thing. I thought, yeah, all right, okay. And for years, even while currently in active addiction with cocaine and ketamine, I still never seen it as a gateway drug. And it's only when I started getting a little bit older and getting a little bit more knowledge, I thought, you know what? She was absolutely spot on. It really is.
Yeah.
And I suppose that links into what we're talking around with ketamine. Maybe there is some sort of link between, well, I know there is. I know there's a direct correlation between people who sniff ketamine and smoke cannabis. I know it's a massive link. I know a lot of people do both, but also it'd be interesting to see is that is that a massive trigger for people
Yeah.
early on?
Well, Finley, when you went from smoking weed to cocaine, were you aware that going to cocaine was a kind of a step up? You knew you were going into a different kind of, the waters were getting a bit murkier and dangerous. Did you ever consider that? Did you think I shouldn't go here? What was it that made you go to that point?
Um, I suppose it was the social aspect of it, going out and see it. And I'd always been quite curious to it anyway, because obviously, once you start smoking weed and you're meeting drug dealers and one thing and another, you start hearing different, you know about cocaine, don't you? It's not a very well hidden secret. I mean, you go into a pub toilet now, 100% you're going to see someone sniffing it. So it's not very hidden. And it was something I'd been a little bit curious of, maybe. So I think mainly though it was sort of the social aspect. It were going out and it was sort of I had this thing that it come hand in hand with drinking. Maybe from lads that I knew that were a bit older. It's like, yeah, it's quite hard to sort of pinpoint that really, but yeah, to answer your question, I did know it was a step up, 100%. Yeah, because I'd not been around it that much. As with weed, everyone smoked it. With cocaine, it wasn't a case of everyone I knew was sniffing it, but there were people that I knew, so it were like, "Oh, what's this?" If that makes sense.
Just it does. Just tell us about being on cocaine, Phil, before we get to ketamine. Were you, I guess when you were taking it, the high was fabulous. Um, what about when you weren't taking it? Were you feeling issues of guilt? What about the consequences of becoming addicted, the effect that that might have on your family and your parents, whoever was in your life? Just say a bit about that if you would.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, cocaine took over first for probably a good year, maybe more. Probably when I was about 17, 18. Now I managed to hard it. I managed to sort of keep jobs up, friendships up, and I did manage to sort of juggle things around it. It weren't at the peak of my addiction. It was just sort of this for me dipping my toes into addiction. And it were early doors, so obviously with addiction, it takes a little bit of time for consequences to start coming. Things to start really going wrong, your health, mental health, all that sort of stuff. So I did manage to juggle it, and then I got out of it. And do you know what? It's quite hard for me to be hard for me to sit here and explain how I felt at that time because it was quite a few years ago. So much has gone on since. But what I will tell you is it's not a good place to be. Um, it's not fun. Like I say, for me, cocaine makes me isolated. It makes me the high of it. I don't. For me, there's not really a high on cocaine. It just sort of numbs me. It just makes me want to shut off from the world, shut the curtains, have no contact with anybody. Obviously, you're not eating on it, you're not sleeping on it. It comes hand in hand with alcohol and smoking and all that, and gambling. That's another one for me. If I sniff cocaine, I'm going to gamble. It's just literally a big spiral into just complete negative behaviours that one by one are just ruining your life. Um, and this is me speaking from my sort of most recent experience on it because, like I said, I will struggle to look back to being 17, 18 and being specific around how it made me feel. But I know for a fact the sort of psychological need for it once you have had it is massively more than ketamine. So if I had one line of cocaine, I will not stop until I can get another or a bag or whatever, however you want to look at it. I'll go to any lengths, and I physically, it's like you physically feel it. You know, it's almost a physical withdrawal. It's like I need more. And you've probably heard the word fiends. You know, a fiend, a drug fiend, a crack fiend, however you want. That's what cocaine makes turns me into. Um,
What lengths did you go to, Finn?
oh, selling. The worst one for me was selling stuff. So I might wake up one day, and if I've not been in work or whatever, say because at this point we're talking. You know, we fast forward a little bit here just to clear up. So it was getting to the point where I would duck in work more regular. Then I'd get sacked. So then I'd have to jump to another job. I was just going from job to job. So there'd be little spells where I was out of work. I could wake up one day, owe someone some money, and just sell my car. You know, I'd just literally wake up, not tell anyone I'm going to do it, not run it through anyone and say this is what I'm going to do. Just literally wake up, take some pictures, and advertise it and sell it. And then spent money within. You know, I've had done it a few times. You know, I might get a couple of grand for one of my cars. I just spend it in it lasts not even a week. You know, um, guitars, trainers, coats, clothes, watches, everything. You know, I literally one by one it just strips everything that you've sort of built up. You know, your sort of materialistic stuff. Um, then there's the borrowing side of stuff, the loans that I took out. You know, to this day now we're talking. This is this period years ago. I still owe thousands now to companies, and this is sort of cork and ket. You know, it's a mixture. Um, but yeah, you will literally go to any length for cocaine, and that's me speaking as an addict. You know, I know there is people out there that can probably have 4 pints and a bag of coke and go home. Me as an addict, I can't do that. I'm going to any lengths, and I'm not stopping until every avenue has been explored, and I know there is nothing left. You know. Um,
Yeah. And how old are you now, Finley?
I'm 25 now.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
about and just tell us about that sounds crazy, but a transition from cocaine to ketamine. Was the two going on together? How did you discover ketamine? Did you know much about it? Did you just see it as something new to try? Just explain that for us.
Yeah, so it would have been about 2018, 19. Now I'm just going to say, if my dates are a little bit off, I apologise. It's been that much of a mad few years with one thing and another. Me dates and stuff are very muddled up. So if anything don't add up, it's not that I'm telling lies. It's just literally I do struggle with dates. So I'm just trying to give you a rough. But it
That's
was
fine.
around 2018 it was, and we're going to be at a festival. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
We're going there. Now, the main things at that point were cocaine, pills. Pills weren't really a problem because it was that intense and stuff. It's not something that I could have done all the time. You know, the sort of party drugs, as they call them. I got a message saying off somebody that I know that I must have been buying cocaine off at the time, saying I've got some ketamine there. Now, the name I would have heard of the name, I'd imagine, but I wouldn't have had any feelings or experiences to associate to that drug. I think that in itself is an exciting thing for someone, especially who's young and again uneducated and a very low level of self awareness. It's like, oh, how's this going to make me feel? And I suppose at this point, like I said, I'm going from job to job, very unstable life, financially unstable, emotionally. You know, everything in my life is very unstable. I've got no pathway cleared out, no purpose, no goals, just literally living day to day. And I don't think that's a good place to be. Again, for me personally, I know it's not. Um, Gets this text and we're going to beat her the day after. Excuse me. And I showed my mate. I said, "Oh, look at this. So and so's got some ketamine. Should we try it?" My mate said, "Yeah, go on then." So we just got a bag of it. And again, it was the night before the festival. And we went to my mate's house and we had it. And because we were so sceptical of it, it weren't a case of pouring big lines. It was just having little bits and just seeing. And I just remember feeling relaxed, feeling chilled out. And again, because there were two of us on one bag, and I don't know how much were in it. I don't want to get into all that sort of stuff. But I felt relaxed. We had a little bit of a laugh, and it were a little bit. It's not trippy, but a little bit. Things weren't fully clear, if that makes sense. And now I said to my mate, I said, "Let's get some more for beta." So we got some more. And this is sort of next bit's quite telling, really, looking back. So we got the minibus over in the morning, and by the time we got to Beaturda from Burnley, all my mates jumping out to get the tent set up, and I've smashed a load of this ketamine in, and I'm off unconscious. Not unconscious, but very, very dazed. We then went into the festival. Everyone's setting the tents up. I'm sat on a chair, and I'm not with it. And I think that in itself's quite telling in a sense, in the fact that all my other mates are quite the good lads, straight heads. They can go and have a few pints. The fact that the second time I've had it and it's come about, I've ended up hammering it and being unable to do what we were there to do, if that makes sense. And you know what? I had that much at that festival that I hated it. Funnily enough, I hated it. But what I did like about it was the disassociation side, which is what it's a disassociate drug in it. And I remember tripping really badly off it, seeing all sorts of stuff. And it was kind of intriguing that this were possible. I've never been in a mindset from any drug where I'm tripping and physically seeing stuff. So I think that drew me in a little bit because it was like, what's that? It starts making you question reality, doesn't it? As daft as that sounds, because you're seeing things. Um, but I suppose the main one with me was it was the disassociation, like I've just said. It was the distraction from life, not when you're under the influence of ketamine, you're not worrying about work and money and relationships and health, and as daft as it sounds, because I know everyone knows what it does to your health. But you literally, it's like euphoria, you're just in a state of total relaxation. Now, this isn't me glamorizing the drug or glorifying it or anything like that. This is me just sharing my experience of it early doors. So anyone, if you're listening to this thinking, "Oh, that sounds good," let me tell you, that period of time where that lasts is very, very short, and soon enough, it's the complete opposite. Now, yeah. So basically, this sort of similar sort of pattern with the cocaine. I started using the ketamine on a weekend in clubs, raw instead of cocaine, or as well as one or the other. And I sort of found that you sniff cocaine, you can't sleep. So what I sort of learnt the trick of sniffing ketamine after it and sort of putting yourself on a level where you're not sat staring at your ceiling duty they call it, sat looking up and down your ceiling and twitching through your curtains and all the scatty side of the cocaine. You sort of sniff a line of ketamine and then it sort of balances you out. So I was using it as a tool in a sense to take away the edginess of the cocaine, which to me and you now it's like how crazy does that sound that you're taking a drug, you don't enjoy it, so you're taking another drug to try and cancel one drug out. Um, I suppose there's a common theme there, isn't there, in not liking the drugs, but it's like that shows the actual power of addiction is the fact that I genuinely didn't like taking them. Um, but I carried on. I carried on because of the sort of the comfort they give me, I suppose.
Yeah, certainly
Um,
you talked there about, you used it and it was kind of becoming your drug of choice, but then you said, look, I don't want to glamorize it. It soon moved on. Just tell us how it moved on and how it became more and more serious and how it started affecting your life from becoming more.
yeah, so again, so just quickly, so it went through it went from weekly, every weekend crept into a Monday, then a Tuesday, and before you know it, it's every day after work. And then as time goes on, it's not a long period of time either. You're then having it before work, you're taking it to work, then you're losing your job because you'd rather be at home sniffing it, and it's a cycle like that. And I suppose that's similar with any sort of drug, alcohol. That is a common theme with how it will take over your life. But yeah, so it very again, because it's such a, but it's an anaesthetic, so it takes away any sense of reality. So even now today, Saturday, I'm like 9 months sober. I still struggle to again with dates and piecing stuff together. So it's quite mixed up in my head. So I've got to try and make sense of timelines and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it very quickly took over to the point where I remember taking it into work, taking an eighth into work and jumping into, I worked in construction, taking it into brew rooms and sneaking in toilets and that sort of stuff. And it took a while for any health consequences to come in. This is quite an important point. It took a while. So in my head, I thought, I found this drug here that's cheap. It was cheap enough, but even back then, now it's half or more than half price what I was paying then. It's cheap enough. It's easy accessible. I could half get up and go to work off it. I can get away with sniffing it wherever I want, and it was like a winning lottery ticket, but it's giving me that comfort of escaping life and reality. Now, soon enough, I'm going to say it took maybe a year, maybe a little bit young, maybe a little bit longer, to build my tolerance up for obviously the amount that I'm taking to go up, which then is going to start with the health problems. So the first problems I sort of had was my stomach. Um, I slipped a disc in my back at work, and so I was taking ibuprofen, sniffing ket, and I was using the injury as a justification to take ketamine to people around me, my friends and stuff. And it worked right in my favour. What I'd say to people, well, nothing else is working. I found that ketamine works. So people couldn't challenge me as much on it. And that was just me justifying it, the painkillers were working and one thing and another. But so yeah. So they started with the stomach. And then it just spread, obviously you hear people talking about the bladder. So the bladder for me come in spells. So at this point now we're talking, I'm sniffing all day, every day. Um, as soon as my eyes open, I'm having a line or I'm thinking about ketamine. As soon as I shut my eyes, I've just had a line. It's literally, the way I'd say it's like a full-time job. The obsession of ketamine is there 24/7. Um, if I didn't have it on me, I'd sort of panic. I'd feel uncomfortable not having it on me because that was my crutch. I was dependent on that drug now to in my head to live a normal life. This was my life. There wouldn't be anywhere I'd go without it where I'd think I can't take it here or I can't do it there. Nothing was off limits. Started having problems with my bladder, and it started off first with an increase in urination. Rather than going once every 4 or 5 hours like a normal person would, it slowly crept up. It'd be once every 2 hours, then every hour. And before you know it, it's every 10, 15 minutes. Then that progresses. So then the pain starts coming. You go into the toilet and the pain is stupid. You literally, this sort of, your eyes are watering from having to squeeze. You're seeing bits of blood in your urine, you're seeing little bits of your bladder, the tissue of your bladder, which, from my understanding, the ketamine's sticking to, corroding it, burning it, and then obviously that's got to come out somewhere then. So then you're passing literally bits of your bladder through your urine. There's the liver and the kidney side of it, which to this day I still get little pains. I'm not 100% sure on the ins and outs of the facts, but you can imagine anything that goes in your body is being broken down, passed through your liver, your kidneys, and all your internal organs. And one by one, it's literally burning your insides. And that's what it did. That's exactly what it did. Slowly but surely, but once the side effects start, they take off, if that makes sense. It's quite weird. This is my experience. Some people it might have happened a lot quicker. I can't speak for anyone else. All I can say is this is my experience of how it sort of took off. Once it started, it was fast paced, and the pain that you end up in on a daily basis is bad. You know, you're talking 9 out of 10 pain on a daily basis just waking up. The only thing at this point here, what genuinely will work is more ketamine. Now I know doctors and stuff are prescribing pregabalins and all sorts of tablets now, which that's a whole other subject in itself. But that in itself is problematic. So now I know a lot of people that I've met in along my journey who now have dual addictions between ketamine and pregabalins and all the tablet side of stuff. But so that's another subject. Yeah, so that was the physical side of it, the agony, the daily pain, just going to the toilet. Then your life starts changing because all of a sudden you're having to plan things around going to the toilet, if that makes sense. So you can't. Your lads might say, "Let's go here or there," and you're not in the right mindset anyway. But you might get the odd day where you wake up and you think, "You know what? I'm going to try and go to gym today. I'm going to try and do this and that." Very rarely, but you did get them. But then you've got to think, right, well, how am I going to get there? Because I'm going to need toilet, and is there a toilet where I'm going? And everything just changes. The whole, your
Finn,
whole.
Finn,
Go on.
did you have any allies in all this? Were your mates kind of encouraging you to just do it, or was there anybody saying enough is enough?
So it's quite interesting, really. I had a couple of my friends who I've grown up with, who were also using the cells. Now, I don't think they were at this point. They weren't at the level I was. Not that it's a competition. I'm just being honest. They were still working. They hadn't really had many of the side effects. So I had a sort of a couple of close friends. I thought, some of them are still my close friends. Some of them have been cut off. The ones that I still speak to are sober now, and they was just in the same sort of trap as me. But you do hear a lot about peer pressure and your friendship group and stuff like that. And I know it is a big issue now because there's a lot more people taking it, and it seems to be happening in groups. Whereas with me, I was again very isolated. I had some friends who were dead supportive, who'd say, "Look, Finn, what can I do to help you?" That was the question. What can I do to help you? Because they didn't know. And the top and bottom of it is nobody can help you. You've got to. I had to openly say, "Look, I have had enough. I want to change." Um, so yeah, to answer your question, a bit of both, Alex. There was good friends who offered support. There was a couple of so-called friends who had actually buy it off and had chuck it me on Leon and stuff like that. So a bit of both, really. But the way I see it is, and the more we sit and look at, well, my friends, and I'm not saying, not this towards you, Alex, this is in general to anyone listening. The more we sit and look at other people in it, well, he's done this, she's done that, this has done this, that is stopping us taking responsibility and accountability for our own actions. We've literally got to ignore whatever's going on and look at our part in what's going on and think, right, okay, well, he's doing that, so I need to cut him off. I need to focus on myself. I need to do what's right for me, get rid of the negativity, and then work on me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I think when we live in blame, it stops us taking accountability. I know
Mm.
that was for me. I blamed everyone and anything other than myself.
Yeah.
Jobs, relationships, money. I even blamed the things that I'd ruined off the back of my addiction for my addiction, even though they were fully intact before it.
Yeah.
You become very I don't know the word, naive and ignorant and all that
Is it
sort of
interesting words, naive and ignorant? I mean, Finley, I didn't know anything about ketamine 6 months ago, and now I feel like I've had a bit of a masterclass,
mm,
and I can't believe how many stories of young people. You've talked about ketamine 18, 19, but I'm hearing stories of 12-year-olds,
yeah.
13-year-olds. I've heard of a story of a 13-year-old kid who come up with a business plan to be Burnley's best ketamine dealer in 2 years. It's kind of I don't want to use the pandemic, but I thought this might be just odd people, but it's so many people in just in one town, Burnley. This must be across the country. And what do you think is going on here, Finley? And what do you think? I sometimes wonder if it's like when I was a kid, I used to go and get a bottle of Old English cider because it was
Yeah.
cheap and it didn't last very long, and thought it wasn't going to ruin my life. Do you think that's a similar thing with ketamine? You think kids are naive and ignorant?
Yeah, I think so. Naive and ignorant was how I'd call myself. I wouldn't call that to anybody else. That was my take on myself. What I would say is uneducated and a lack of awareness and self-awareness. Um, the way I see it, and this is my view again. I'm not saying that I'm right. This is just the way I see it. With drugs and drink and all that sort of stuff is it comes in generations. So it's a sort of generational thing. My generation was massive on weed. I know back in the day it were pills and then ecstasy and that sort of stuff. In the 90s, the rave scene. And I think it comes in generations, and I think it's a case of what catches on. The problem, like we're seeing with ketamine, is the price of it now is so cheap.
How
Uh,
much, Finley, do you reckons?
so to put it into context, when I first did recovery, which was roughly 2021, 22, I was paying £70 for an eighth, which is 3.5 grams. If I were to go out now and get an eighth, I could get it for about 20 quid. So you're talking over under half of the cost. Now, I don't know any drugs that come down in value, especially with supply and demand. The more people that are taking it, usually the price goes up. So you've got to look at why is it coming down? The only way I can explain that is because of what they're putting in it. The amount of ketamine that's going in it compared to the cutting agents is just lowering and lowering and lowering. Um, so a big problem, a big cutting agent they use is MSG, which is, as you probably know it, salt. It's like a Chinese salt that they use for cooking and marinating and all that sort of stuff. Now, if you actually read up on the effects of MSG just on its own to your body, that on its own is could be life changing. Well, you can imagine, can't you? If you start sniffing lines of salt, you can imagine what that does to your blood pressure and your organs and all that sort. And you not to mention your nose and your brain, your cognitive function. You mix that with the ketamine and the other stuff that's going in it, and it's just there's just no words for how detrimental it is to your mental and physical health. Um, so yeah, to put it into context, it's gone from £70 for 3.5 grams to about £20 in the space of a couple of years. Excuse me. Um, Again, maybe I don't know about it, but I don't know any drug that comes down in value, especially by that amount. um, and yeah, it's dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing that's happened with it. And what that does then is it enables people, these young kids. I mean, if you let's say there's two of them, they might get a tenner a week for school. I don't know how it works these days. I know for me, I got like a fiver off my mum and a fiver off my stepdad at the weekend. You've a tenner there, a couple of years chip too. Before you know it, you can have half ounce of ketamine at 14-year-old, just like that. A click of a fingers.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Philly,
suppose
you're on the you're on the other side of this at the moment, and things are going okay. What I want to hear what you want to say to young people, and some of the stuff you're doing now. If maybe if parents have become aware that their kids are using ketamine, first of all, what would you say to them? And what would you say to teenagers out there who are dabbling or in the early stages of ketamine, and also a bit about what you're doing yourself?
so to the parents, I want more than anything, I want to show a little bit of empathy. Um, I think a lot of the highlight are on their addicts themselves, these young kids and then these teenagers and what, however old. I know people at 30, 40-year old that are in rehabs now for ketamine. So it is, even though it is prolifically young people, there is also older people. But support in terms of the parents, so I'm actually trying to look at setting up a group around parental support and education because the way I see it, a lot of these parents, and this is what I've heard. This is my experience personally in the rooms that people I've spoke to. A lot of the parents are a bit of an old school mindset, so they don't fully understand addiction, if that makes sense. So their mindset is, "Why are you doing it? Just stop doing it. Have you seen what you're doing to us?" And I look that this This is me being judgmental at all because I understand that if someone doesn't understand something personally or have experience, how are they supposed to know? To the parents, so I just say, it's look, try and find some support for yourself as well. You know, these young kids, they need support. There's a reason why they're taking these drugs. They don't. None of us wake up one day and think, I know, let me just throw 10, 20, 30 years of my life away sniffing drugs. Let me harm my family. You know, it don't mean that they love you any less, or they don't. You know, they don't love you, or they don't care. They're just trapped in the cycle of addiction, and once it grabs hold of you, breaking that cycle isn't easy. But it's doable, 100% doable. You know, I sit here today as someone who was in that cycle of addiction. I written my life off. I did genuinely. At 23-year-old, I thought, this is my life. I made peace with having a bag. Literally made peace with it. You know, I used to picture, I used to think, right, okay, well, it's going to happen. So get comfortable with it. I made peace with dying young. I made peace with all that negative stuff. You've just got to really, you've got to root deep. You've got to go really deep within yourself. Um, and it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. It takes support. So this again to the parents, these young, you know, these sons and daughters and what have you, they need support. And I know it's easier said than done, and I know it's emotionally draining for the parents. You know, I've seen that firsthand on my own parents, so I really do empathise. But a strict approach with them and a shouting and bawling and kicking them out and all that sort of stuff isn't necessarily going to work. You know, if you're at your wits' end with them, you're not seeing any changes. This is my experience again. They need consequences. They do need consequences, but that's, you know, don't just chuck consequences at them from the get go. Try and, you know, try and nurture them a little bit and find out what support's around. You know, yeah, it's quite hard, really, Alex, because not everybody's the same. You know, not everybody's got the same mindset, so the approach does need to be slightly different. Some people do need a strict approach. It needs to be right. This is what you need to do because this is the harm you're causing. Some people need a little bit more of a nurturing approach where it's like, you know, a little bit more calming and spoken to. So it's quite hard for me to sit and say that, you know, what the
What?
approach needs to be.
Yeah. But if there's some kids watching this, or the parents will show it to them, what, just look down the camera, Finn, and speak directly to kids who are using ketamine now.
Yeah. So I don't make many promises, me, especially the ones that I can't keep. But one thing I will promise, if you keep taking ketamine, you will end up with a bag. You'll end up with kidney damage, liver damage. You'll end up possibly I believe there's a link with infertility. So if you want to have kids, you want to have a good healthy life, you know, you want to get a good career, have a nice car, go on holidays, all the things that you know you can say bye to all of it. And that's one thing I will promise anyone that is stuck in the cycle of ketamine. The other thing I will promise is no matter how bad you feel, you know, right now you might be watching this and you might think, my life's done, like I've just said I felt. It's not, far from done. Um, Reach out, get some help, get some support, get in touch with Inspire if you're from Burnley. If you're not from Burnley, you know, there's a lot of services. Have a look on Google, you know, nothing is going to get given to you. You're not going to wake up one day and there's going to be a lot of people at your door, services trying to help you. You've got to want it and you've got to go out and get it. Um, but you can do it, and I promise you, there's a better life to anyone. And this isn't just ketamine, any addiction. There is a better life waiting for you on the other side of it. Just put that work in, knuckle down. There's a saying, they say if you put 50% of the energy that you put into your active addiction, into your recovery, you'll do all right. And it's true, it really is. So, yeah, anyone who's specific to Ket, reach out, get some help, get some support, and start fighting back a little bit. Don't give up. Give yourself a chance, you know. But yeah, there's a better life waiting for you, 110%, and that's a promise. So yeah, um,
Here's Finley. Finley, I've done hundreds of podcasts, and I have to just tell you that I think this could be the most important one I've done because hearing it from somebody who's lived it and been through it, I think is really important, and I'm really grateful for your time in sharing that, Finley. And I'm glad. Just to finish off, how are you doing now? You're making good progress?
yeah, great. So there is a couple of things I want to touch on. Yeah, so just to sort of a bit more of a lighter note at the end. So, I'm 9 months sober now. People think that you get sober and you get clean and sober and you live this boring life. And let me tell you, it is the complete opposite. I'm living a life now that I never thought I could live. To some people, the life I'm living is a normal life. But from where I come from, it's not, this to me, it's quite abnormal, but eventually it will become normal. I went on my first holiday just before Christmas. Um, didn't I don't drink, I don't take anything. I'm on the e-cigs, and I'm trying to not M on head. That's my only little bit now of where I get me unhealthy habit. Went on holiday and I did stuff that I never would have done before. I did parasailing or paragliding off cliffs and fishing and jet skiing, and I had the money to be able to go and do that. I had the mental capacity to get out of bed, not rough, go out and enjoy it and be present and be in the moment. I were at boxing at the weekend, surrounded by beer and stuff. And I get, look, for some people that's a dangerous place to be, but for me, I need that. I need the fun stuff in my life, and I wouldn't be able to do that stuff using ketamine or any other drug. Um, there's endless possibilities when you put the drugs down. And I know we're specific to ketamine, but this is anything. Life flips on it in its head, does a complete 90 degree. And look, I don't wake up every day and jump out of bed and start skipping round. It's not, it's not how it works. But I wake up every day and I'm sober and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm sober and I appreciate the little things in life that we take for granted. Gratitude's a big thing for recovery. We take things for granted. You have to start looking at the things that you wouldn't necessarily have looked at and start really being grateful, showing it as well, showing gratitude. Um, I've got all sorts going on, I'm at college doing a level 3 counselling course. I've got my own group set up, which is called the Ket Hub, which is in Stockport. It's on Mile End Lane, Fulton House. I'm just in the middle so off the back of the Ket Hub, I'm in the middle of setting up a ketamine education support service. We're in the middle of branding, logos, and all that sort of thing. And that's going to be, my goals for it is sort of an umbrella service where we've got the meetings. We're going to get an online meeting set up. There's going to be something for parents in there. We're going to look at the intervention, prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation aspects of it, which are the three aspects. The prevention is something I know you're keen on, Alex. I know you've been pushing for to be going into schools a little bit sooner than you can. That's something we want to get on board with. Go in, educate, give people a little bit of an awareness, not just around ketamine and drugs, but around emotions.
Mm.
How are these kids supposed to know how to deal with emotions? There's no blueprint, and I'm not this isn't a dig at parents, but it's not often, is it? Where I know for me, speaking from personal, memory, I never got sat down or taught how to deal with emotions. When something comes up, the way I got taught it, and this was a subconscious thing I got taught, was to run away, ignore it, hide it, bury it, and it's not healthy. So I'm hoping we can sort of get into schools, look a little bit more about emotional support and education, help people understand emotions. Because it's, again, that's a big umbrella, is emotions, and they get muddled up. People don't fully understand what they are feeling. And it's like, it's not a good place to be, is it? If you're feeling something, I think it's important that you can identify what it is.
Mm.
And then you're like, right, okay, well, this is why I feel it, and that's this. And piece things together, get a bit of an understanding of yourself. So, yeah, really exciting times. Got loads of ideas in my head and with other services. I had a meeting on Friday at a detox unit in Prestwich. Meeting there. We're hopefully going to do some work with them. They're going to help us. We're going to help them work together. And that's, I suppose, if there's anyone listening here from any services where you're listening and thinking, well, look, Finn, we can help you or you can help us. Get in touch.
Mm.
Get in touch with me or Alex. I was hoping when I come on today, I could tell you the page and stuff that we're going to be setting up. It's not finalised yet, so I can't quite do that. But people message me personally on Facebook or whatever. I'm more than happy to help. I'll do whatever I can. And also, we need as much support as possible. I'm only 25. I've got the lived experience. Plenty of empathy and stuff like that. But I need help from services who can come in and say, we can help you with this and we can help you with that. And it's a collective. It's a collective in it. It's not one person or one service isn't gonna help. We've got to work together on this.
Yeah.
And I believe
Finley,
it's.
Finley,
Sorry.
it's been fab chatting to you. I'm really grateful for your honesty and your openness. And like you say, if anybody watching has been affected by this, or you want to speak to Finley, get in touch and I'll make the connection for you. And don't suffer in silence. Do reach out. There is support out there. It's growing and it's growing and change is coming. But Finley, thanks so much for coming on the Godcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Alex. Thanks for letting me share my story, and hopefully, if one person sees it and gets a little bit of hope from it, then it's a start into it. I'll be happy with that. So yeah, I appreciate your time. Thanks for giving me the platform. And yeah, again, anyone who's listening who thinks they can help or needs help, get in touch with me or Alex, and let's try and work together or try and help each other. But yeah, but so all of it's a step in the right direction. That's the way I see it. Things are moving forward now. So yeah, and also Alex, I'd just like to say, obviously thank you for the time, but also I know you're doing some great things yourself in the community. I know you've got a support group set up. I know you're keen on helping. So I suppose well done. Well done without people doing the things that you're doing. It's massive. It's massive, and there's not a lot doing it. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, cheers and yeah, thanks again, and thanks for coming on the Godcast.
Perfect, Alex. Thank you very much.